Lessons from Jephthah. I'm going to be going through the story of Jephthah in Judges chapter 11, verses 12 through 37. So as it relates to the story, I'm actually going to share a little bit of history as far as I'm concerned with myself. I was the type of kid that when I was raised, I always had to learn things the hard way. I don't know if anybody's out there that can share with me, hard-headedness, stubbornness. So if my parents told me the stove was hot, I literally had to go and touch the stove to find out it was hot for myself. So the time came for me to be able to learn how to drive. And from me having that type of personality, I'm sure it was a very fearful time for my parents. So I remember this blue Dodge Caravan that we used to have, and I used to bug my dad, "Dad, please let me get to drive. And so finally I had my permit. I was about 15 years old, and my dad let me drive for the first time. So we took the van out, and I'm driving, and I feel good, I feel good. He's like, "Sammy, do this, Sammy, do that." I'm like, "Don't worry, Dad, I got this. I'm doing good, I know what I'm doing." We make our way out of the neighborhood, and I get to the stop sign. I'm like, "Man, all right, I made it down the street here. I'm feeling good about myself. All right, let me go ahead and make the turn to use the turn signal and get on the main road." And I start getting a little bit more confident. So my foot is getting heavier on the gas pedal. Now my dad is telling me, "Sammy, slow down. Sammy, slow down." And I'm just like, don't worry, Dad, I got this. He's like, "Sammy, boy, I'm telling you, slow down. I'm like, "Dad, don't worry, I got this." Sure enough, right after that second time, we come to a bend in the road, and there's a guardrail on the edge of the road. It's on George Road. And the van careens off the street, and we go and we start riding right against the guardrail. And I just remember sparks flying up. I see sparks just flying the whole time on the side. I managed to get control back of the van. We get back to the main road. And so I'm driving, and I'm like, "All right, I got to pull over." And I'm looking at my dad, and he is just staying steadfast forward, will not look at me one bit. And I thank God for that, because had he looked at me, I probably wouldn't be here giving you this sermon today. So we go and we pull in, and we pull into that driveway right there. And I just look at my dad. I was like, "Hey, Dad, you want to drive?" So the reason I share this story with you is because, my dad was trying to teach me a lesson. We're in class right now. We're learning lessons. We're learning about the Bible. We're learning so many lessons, and there's so many lessons outside of the book of Jephthah, and I'm just focusing on a couple. And within Jephthah, I had like 5 or 6 different messages I could have given to you guys as far as a lesson, but I can only focus in on 2. So as we get into the book of Jephthah, I want to start off with a little backstory of Jephthah. So Jephthah is actually cast out from his family, the Gileadites, because he was a born child of a mother that wasn't married to their father. All right, so the other kids were scared that he was going to inherit everything, and they didn't want that to happen. Gilead was theirs, and so he went off to another land, and he found brotherhood with a gang, and that's the term they used in the research I found through Reverend Joseph Benson. Backstory of Jephthah is he's a mighty warrior. Now, Gilead is actually being threatened by the Ammonites, and they actually go as far to promise Jephthah, "Hey, Jephthah, if you just lead us in battle, we'll let you have anything." And it comes up to where they actually promise Jephthah that he can be their leader, he can be their commander, as long as he just leads them to victory over the Ammonites. So this is actually where we pick up. So Jephthah accepts their offer. And now, in these verses, 12 to 13, he's going back and forth with the Ammonites. "Why do you have a problem with me? Why do you have a problem with my country? Why are you bringing this fight to us?" And he becomes aware that the Ammonites are just thinking that the land that they're on is land that they stole from them previously. And so they're trying to get it back. So Jephthah sends a messenger back to him, and it's a long message. It's just going on and on about how this land is ours, we didn't take it from you guys, and you really don't have any right to it. So the king of the Ammonites, he says, but the king of the Ammonites did not listen to the words of Jephthah that he sent to him. Then the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah, and he passed through Gilead and Manasseh, and passed on to Mizpah of Gilead, and from Mizpah of Gilead he passed on to the Ammonites. And Jephthah, he made a vow to the Lord and said, "If you will give the Ammonites into my hand, then whatever comes up from the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the Ammonites, shall be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering." So I couldn't help but think to myself here, like the part that stands out to me is then the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah. And I couldn't comprehend it. I was just thinking to myself, if the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, then why is he making this type of vow? What's going on there? And why is it that then the Spirit of the Lord was upon Jephthah happens before he passed through Gilead of Manasseh? He's going to all these places. So I did some research and I found Reverend Joseph Benson commentary, and he says the reason he's going to these towns is actually to recruit people. He's recruiting. So God, the Holy Spirit, has filled him, and he's given him the power. He's given him the power to have strength in numbers. He's got numbers coming his way. So he gets numbers from one town, gets numbers from another town. And it just made me think, like, how there are times where we don't trust in the Spirit. We're here in class and we're working on our spirit and trying to rebuild it, and then I think to myself, and I went Black Friday shopping. And Black Friday shopping, I don't know how many people went Black Friday shopping here, but I was out there, and we find ourselves going for that $200 55-inch TV, or the need to have seasonal items that are coming out and they're so cheap. And I found myself in line for that 55-inch $200 TV. And now, you think about all that the Spirit is doing, right? All that the Spirit is doing. But I found myself in this line on Black Friday thinking to myself, boy, I wish somebody would come and cut me. I wish somebody would just try and mess with me right now. I wish somebody, I felt like, y'all know Medea? Y'all know Medea from talking? I felt like I was going Medea style in the store. I was like, oh boy, I wish somebody would. I'm going crazy. But then I realized, like, wait a minute, I can't be thinking like this. And that's Jephthah. He had the Spirit of the Lord with him. But then he went off and made that crazy vow. Why would he do that? It doesn't make sense. And that's what we do when we go off and we get in our wilderness and go to our places, that we get lost from the Spirit. So now Jephthah goes into this battle, and so Jephthah crossed over the Ammonites to fight against them, and the Lord gave them into his hand. And he struck them from the Aroer to the neighborhood of Minnith, 20 cities, as far as Abel Keramim, with a great blow. I'm having problems with these words, the pronunciations. Yeah. So the Ammonites were subdued before the people of Israel. Then Jephthah came to his home at Mizpah. Now this is where his vow becomes really coming into light. And behold, his daughter came out to meet him with tambourines and with dances. She was an only child. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. And as soon as he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, alas, my daughter, you have brought me very low, and you have become the cause of great trouble to me. For I have opened my mouth to the Lord, and I cannot take back my vow. So one thing, lesson one, and I forgot to say this before I went into these verses, was trust in the Spirit to guide you towards his will. All right, that was lesson number one, guys. Now getting back to here, I actually have a story that you guys may be familiar with. There's a gentleman who I went to school with, a couple of gentlemen. On the year of graduation, Alan Thompson and Christopher Flandin. So Christopher Flandin was hanging out with a couple of our friends outside of Steak and Shake. And Alan Thompson was driving in with a couple of his friends. And they drive in, and Christopher Flandin and his friends, they say something, and then they say something back, and then they drive away. All right? So they drive away, and they're like, all right, you know what? They're being the bigger people, right? They turn back around, and they come back. They get out the car, and one of them, Alan Thompson, gets out the car and throws one punch. Boom. He knocks out Chris Flandin. He goes away from that instant. He's like, yeah, I knocked him out, I felt good, how dare that dude talk smack to me? All right? He wins that battle. But unfortunately, as time progressed, came to find out Chris Flandin actually got put into a coma. Wow. About 48 hours later, Chris Flandin was pronounced dead in the hospital. Wow. Alan Thompson ended up arrested. He got arrested, and he got sentenced to 10 years in prison. 10 years in prison, and that was a lenient sentence. Now, the reason I say that story with this one is Alan was just so caught up in the notion of the battle. Just like us, we can get so caught up in the notion of a battle. We forget what the bigger picture is. Whether it's work that we get caught up in, even school. I can't speak for you guys, but I know when I'm done with this semester, for December, I am focused on my family. I'm hanging out with them. I am doing so many things with them. Because we get so consumed in this battle. You know, and that leads me to lesson number 2. Do not become so consumed with the battle that you forget about the war. So I'm going to leave you guys with this statement. God has blessed us with a book of knowledge and experiences that we can turn to for every situation in our life. The story of Jephthah has many more lessons that could help us if we simply invest the time to learn from God. Metaphorically speaking, my dad in the van that day was like God in my life. Slow down, son. You don't know everything. Please listen to what I am trying to teach you so you don't make a mistake and crash. And then there is us humans who are exactly like me in the driver's seat. Don't worry, God. I got this. Then it happens. We lose control and we crash. And then we want to look next to us and ask God if he can drive now. Now, don't wait for the crash. Give God control of your life now and invest time into learning all that he is trying to teach you from the word so that when the time comes where he needs for you to drive, you will be ready for it.
Amen. Amen.